Hello, students. Today we are going to learn a very interesting and important part of our writing skill, that is story. The skill of writing is to create a context in which other people can think. I hope all of you will agree with this statement. A story is which raises curiosity in the mind of the reader. Story is what captivates the brain. It creates excitement. What does a story have? There are many things in a story. When we read a story, a simple story, probably we do not understand all these things. But when we start writing a story, things start with complications. So if we have an understanding of the all the elements or the main ingredients of a good story, we can definitely do a good job. So to start with, let us understand that in a story writing, what is a setting, what do you mean by plot actually, what is a conflict in a story, etc., etc. So, setting in a story is where and when is the story set. Setting represents both the physical and cultural condition in which the character exists. Then you have characters. Who all characters? How many? So, it can be a person, it can be an animal, or really anything personified. There can be one main character or many, and often there are secondary characters, but not always. It complicates the story then, otherwise. Then you have your plot. The events that happen in a story are called a plot. We typically find an introduction, in which we typically find an introduction, and then a rising action, a climax, the following action, and the resolution. Plot is often represented as an arc. Then comes the conflict. Every story must have a conflict. That is a challenge or problem around which the plot is based. Without conflict, the story will have no purpose or trajectory, remember. Then you have a theme, the idea, belief, moral, or lesson, or insight. It is the central argument that the author is trying to make the reader understand. The theme is the why of the story. Now, here you can see tone, mood. Now, what is tone? Tone is the overall emotional tone or meaning of the story. Is it happy, funny, sad, depressed? So, tone can be portrayed in multiple ways. There through words, it can be through grammar choices, choice of theme, imagery and description, symbolism, and the sounds of the words, and in combination with the sound words. You can, and always remember, there is style which is very, which has a part, which is a part of the tone. This is how things all said, word choices, sentence structure, dialogue, metaphor, simile, hyperbole, style significantly contributes to the tone. Right. So I hope this is clear so far. Now, this just have a look at the graph of a story. It has a beginning, middle, it has rising action, climax, and then in the end you have the falling action and the resolution. Now, exposition, or in the introduction rather, in this stage, the plot of a story, the setting and the characters, especially the main character known as the protagonist, are introduced, as well as the main problem, conflict, or goal of the story. Then comes your rising action. The rising action stage involves an inciting incident, The inciting incident pushes the plot into motion. Events begin to build. The protagonist takes action, and the storyline becomes more complex. During this phase, there is often a sense of tension. Now the story reaches to the climax. Climax is the turning point in the plot of a story. It involves a climax, hence the name. The central struggle. Climax is the central struggle. The protagonist faces the main challenge, which will eventually lead to the outcome or goal of the story. Typically, this is the most emotional part of the story and it often involves the most action. Then comes your falling action. Now, during this stage, what happens? The action winds down, loose ends get tied up, events are resolved, and we learn the results of the protagonist's actions. Then comes your denouement or conclusion, the resolution. In this stage, the goal is resolved and the conflict ends. This could be a positive, it could be negative, or neutral. We say open ended. So this is the end of the story. So without plot, there is no story. So in a story, something has to happen, otherwise, it is not a story. The plot of a story includes the events of the story and conveys the key themes, messages, and meaning of the narrative. It's what gives a story its energy, emotion. A good plot engages readers, so they want to know what will happen next. Always remember. So, look at this example of a story here. Parents never let me stay home alone, but one night babysitter cancels and they have to. Everything starts off fine. I'm having a great time. I see a frog in the hall. I'm totally afraid of frogs, so I freak out. I hide from it. I try and fail to trap it in a trash can. I try to fail to get it into a bag. I chase the frog out of the house with a tennis racket. I spend the rest of the night cleaning up my mess. I get into pajamas and watch TV. My parents come home happy that things seem okay. My parents plan another outing. I consider asking to not be left alone. Then realize the frog incident showed me I'm stronger than I thought. The frog. So, this is the perfect example of a plot starting with conflict, rising action, reaching to its climax, and then falling action and the resolution or denouement. So, this is something called a layout of a story. So, you have a beginning, you have a setting, you inform the readers about the character and the problem, and then there is a conflict, rising action reaches the climax, and then finally it ends up in the with the answer or a solution or a resolution. So for today we will continue and talk about other elements of the story in the next video. Bye then.